Hello, everybody, and welcome to Self-Pity Hash Podcast, where we're super brilliant and have very good ideas, but nobody seems to understand and wants to put into the effort to understand. And we have the apex, the prime man of self-pity with us here, Paul Sztorc.
That was
Hello,
very
thanks.
offensive.
Happy to be here.
Well,
Via Jeff.
Paul was on a Twitter space talking about drivechain with random people, I imagine, and he left that and came here. He could be
for
there
this.
and you offended like that.
Yeah, this is that big of an outfit. I know that this is what I need. If I can just, get your viewers on board, that's going to be what makes the difference.
Well, it's very satisfying to know for sure that here nobody for sure doesn't understand and doesn't care. So that alleviates a lot of pressure, right? You can just give up here for this current hour and talk about other things.
This is as high as the stakes get.
Yes. So, Via Jeff, you invited Paul.
Yeah, I wanna know what race he played.
On StarCraft?
Yeah.
No, I did. I did Zerg because I was all about the Zerg rush because I was like cheesing it up. But I didn't really get that much into StarCraft. I was more into Warcraft, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3. But yeah, I played Zerg.
So let me ask you the important question that I try to ask everybody. What did you think about the aesthetic direction Blizzard went with Warcraft 3?
I think this is an excellent question because there are many parallels between Warcraft 3 Reforged, Star Wars Episode 1, and potentially the future of Bitcoin, which is that you have a situation where people are very complacent and overconfident, and they think, how could this go wrong? It's funny you asked about that because I'm pretty sure that, once I was trying to make the post for Thunder, my blog post about scaling with sidechains. And what I wanted to do, I remembered from my childhood, when you selected a server, when you joined battle.net on Warcraft 3, and I was like, that's what I want. And you can still find this to this day. If you go to the post, I ended up getting it, but I wanted this screenshot. So I thought I'll just open Warcraft 3 and I know where that menu is. And I'll just take a screenshot on my own desktop computer because even many years later, I still kept it installed because it was such a great game. Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne. And so I tried to open it and then as you can guess what happened. It immediately tried to upgrade everything to Re4. It downloaded like 78 gigabytes worth of nonsense. The original game is 700 megabytes, I think, of Warcraft 3. So it's like a very tight game. And
so you used the same computer for 10 years? Or what?
Well, I just kind of kept moving the hard drive over.
You can migrate. I still have like an installation of StarCraft, of the old StarCraft on my computer. I got like 3 of them redundant somewhere.
Wow.
So yeah, they really ruined it, of course. I mean, it's unbelievable how many things have been. One thing that was ruined was that the original game took into account like network disconnections where you could someone would disconnect and it would like pause the game while they reconnected. But the new one apparently just immediately lose the game if you have like 5 seconds of lag or something.
Really? Is that in Warcraft 3? Because that's not an issue in StarCraft.
It actually happened in like a tournament. People were playing Warcraft 3 Reforged like in like a stadium. It's happened multiple times.
Jesus Christ.
That's brilliant.
Something that would not have affected the old. So what it speaks to is that you have creative people.
StarCraft is much worse.
They have their heart and soul in the game, and they work really hard to make it a success because they have control and ownership, control, responsibility, power. They all go together. Take responsibility for the game being good because they feel like they have a vision. They have like a creative vision. And it's funny you mentioned the art because the art it's absolutely crucial. And I when I just was experimenting with it for fun, trying to write this blog post about blockchain scalability, and I was like, "What the hell is Reforged?" I was like, "What the? Why is it downloading so much?" Because it used to be an update, used to just be like whatever on like an old connection. It downloads like a billion things. So the stuff is terrible because the people who made the old art in Warcraft 3, the units all look very different from each other. So it doesn't. It's not really like it doesn't have like a correct anatomy or scale. But like for example, the Orc Raiders, they have like a huge, absurdly huge sword, and they
Uh-huh.
just look different than like the the Farseer. Even though they superficially are an orc on a horse, they look different. Like everything, they all look different. Like the footmen have a huge shield. In the real world, no one would have a shield. But the point is, you have to be able to see what's happening from high above in order to play the game. So they really went all in for that. And then in the newer versions of the game, they ruined all that. They thought that what people wanted was like something that looked realistic, but really it's like chess, where the the knight doesn't really look like a horse. It just has to look iconic. It just has to look different, so that your eye can tell the information. It's not supposed to literally look like a bishop, you know.
It's interesting you went this way because I was actually referring to the original shift
Oh, from Warcraft
towards
2 to Warcraft 3.
yeah.
Oh, that's a huge improvement, of course. Well, I mean, what do you
Is
think?
it?
Do you have some kind of
No, it
problem with
looks
that?
yeah, it looks fucking terrible.
You think I
Like
like Warcraft 3? You can like easily move the camera around. There's like beautiful, like translucent colors and things.
yes, and it look the art style is very cartoony. Like there is a
It is a little
there's
cartoony.
a
It's true.
yeah, there's a practical element to it.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's early 3D, so you needed
Yes,
all those things. But
it's very early 3D.
They continue with it with World of Warcraft, and they then started to implement it also in StarCraft 2. They got a lot of pushback. They made it a little bit grittier, but I still have fundamentally the same. It still looks like plastic toy soldiers,
Yeah, I
and
mean, but you don't care at all about like like all the shadow, like all the 3D stuff was. I
I
thought it
know.
was just like the buildings I liked a lot more with like the
I think the
tiling was good.
I think 3D is ultimately. I don't even think there is added value of 3D.
Yeah, but it's not like the
Because the
game.
sprites, because the 2D with the sprites and the actual, because what they did in StarCraft is that they took 3D rendered pictures and then made flat 2D sprites of them, and they
Mhm.
actually looked kind of good. It's just that the resolution was so damn low is that you couldn't actually make out what it was. Because so apparently the vulture was a dude on a bike. I never knew that the vulture was a dude on a bike. Uh, Apparently there's a dude in the inside of the turret. Anyway, it's
Yeah,
just that
It
the
doesn't
resolution
matter.
was
It
low.
doesn't matter. You just need some abstract stuff and
Yes, but it looked
pictures
a
to
lot
different.
better than the cartoony stuff they went with Warcraft. It made it
I mean,
I'm
really
fine.
Warcraft.
silly.
Okay, I mean, so you say
I'm
cartoony,
fine
but
with
like
Warcraft 3. I
like
think StarCraft 2 is very bad. Like everything is so dark. The units they all look the same. But Warcraft 3 you can
exactly.
differentiate between them, so
It's like
it's not
the
that bad.
chessboard. It's like you need to just see which unit is which who is a mortar team and who is a knight. You just want to see what is what because it affects the game. You have to have your people. You have your people shooting at them. I mean, Warcraft 3 is a game that has like wizards and magic and orcs, and so the idea that it being cartoony is not really like is that really lame? I mean, it's like a fantasy game. It's not
Yeah,
like
but the
Gears of
start.
War or something. You
Yes,
know.
but the I mean, there always was this tongue in cheek element, even in Warcraft 1 and Warcraft 2. It's just the visual art style of it wasn't as like the silly dimensions you mentioned with like the large shield and the
Let's
large
change
Yeah.
topics.
sword and
The
the
listeners are
large
getting bored.
jaws.
Like a peon is funny looking. They look dorky.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
so
they
but
say funny little phrases when you click on them. They say
you
like whatever.
Dabu, some,
Exactly.
yes.
Yes. That's good. Wow, that's fantastic.
Um,
We're
but
gonna learn that he is actually the guy behind that voice.
you tied it into Bitcoin development,
Yes.
where you said it. What was it? You
Complacency and overconfidence will destroy us. We'll be Warcraft 3 reforged.
okay, but there was also a combination of three factors aligning that you mentioned. What were those? Can you
Didn't I
remember
say
them?
why was it complacency, overconfidence, just taking it for granted that something will be good?
No,
Uh,
no, 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 no.
well, then what was I talking about?
I think in relation to the original Warcraft, where there were the team, it was a combination of power or something. It was competency.
power, responsibility, control, and ownership. Those all have to go
Yes.
together. Yes.
Okay, but you didn't relate that to Bitcoin yet.
Well, Bitcoin development, the developers do not. If the developers pass on CTV or they pass on BIP 300, and instead they go with Taproot for 5 years, they don't sink lower on the totem pole relative to other developers. So it's like maybe the whole Bitcoin community suffers, but they don't.
There's nothing to compare.
Yeah.
Right. So
they need to
can
compete
compare.
or something. They need to have some kind of like vulnerability to replacement so that they stay focused on the end user's needs.
Okay, that's interesting. So you do approach it from like there is an end user need, and we need the developers need to I guess identify and work towards solving the issues of the end user's needs, something like that. Because my approach to Bitcoin is like completely different. I mean, it's a thing. We're still figuring out what thing it is. We're just make the most obvious continuations in development, and then whatever use case or uses comes out of it, it's like it's not it's not a, it is Bitcoin is the solution looking for a problem, and it's not a problem that it is a problem looking for its solution. The other way around.
Wow.
Yeah,
When
I
you
think
put it like that,
BIP 300 is like that. Like BIP 300 opens creates much more solutions, and these
Yeah,
solutions are looking for problems.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It was very motivated at the time. It was very motivated as to uh, um, as being a solution to a problem, especially with the contention at the time, and Paul as the savior of the bringing us the solution to all our problems. Is that if we only implemented drive chains, everybody could be happy.
yes,
Yeah.
that was
Uh,
what I thought, and sort of still think to some extent, is that it was a problem, a solution to the problem of people disagreeing over what the blockchain should contain, namely the block size war, but also everything else.
Was it conceived as a solution to that problem, or was it
Well,
because
unfortunately,
of
no,
hive mind?
because it was kind of like it's kind of like the creative process was kind of just moving in all directions at that time. So I was interested in prediction markets, of course. Blockstream had already, like they had the sidechain idea was already kind of discussed in like 2013. I was kind of working on my own thing. I was like, I'll figure out how to bolt this stuff together later, and I'll just work on my own idea for now. I really did not want to launch an altcoin because they were all stupid back then. And so I came up with like a first version of like, and then it was actually called drivechain with a space. And then someone said, "Oh, you should look into the two-way peg is what you really want." Someone on Bitcoin Talk told me that. I'm sure we can still find this thread if we wanted to. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so then I was like, I kind of just waited. I thought Blockstream was working on that. And then later on, I finished HiveMind, the prediction markets project. And then I was going to like implement what Blockstream did, and then I had to implement it, and then I found that what they had actually done was basically write a paper and then not do anything else. So then I was like, okay, they haven't done anything. So then I was like, I tried to figure out, like, I kind of resurrected my own idea again, since it was so originally it was to solve the problem of how to connect HiveMind to Bitcoin. But then I was just kind of working on, the block size war was so big. I was just like, this is like what it does is it's universal. Any weird blockchain that you wanted to connect to Bitcoin, you could connect, and you could just connect Bitcoin XT. Bitcoin XT was the 8 MB thing. That was my current thing. So they were like, that was like, you could just connect that to you could just connect that to Bitcoin, and then you would then the whole scaling debate would be over. And in particular, it was clear to me at the time that the debate would never end with one side getting their way, because it wasn't really about whether or not the optimal block size is large or small, because it was about how different people are. Some people have a lot of computing, they have a great internet connection, so they didn't care as much. Some people are willing to trust the miners more than other people. Some people were really hurt by the high fees, and others were not. So it was really about it was always, the solution was always going to be, how do we safely have the large and small blocks coexist? It was never going to be like, how do we get rid of these other people? They're bad actors. But that's what it became. But I knew that would never really be the solution.
So I somewhat agree, but I guess here the difference in approach reveals itself as, like, blockchains don't scale. The thing just doesn't, like, fundamentally it won't scale. So if your issue is like the fees are too high, it's like, well, that's the nature of the thing, too damn bad, right?
Well, I don't think that is the
Do
case,
webs ever
because
scale?
a single blockchain may not scale, but that's not the proposal. The proposal is to have like 10 blockchains that are big, and that big and growing, and and that are each optional. So it's not one blockchain for everything. It's, we break it down into, we do sharding or something, and we break it down into some blockchains, and we get an order of magnitude from doing that, because we have 10. And then those blockchains are 10 times the size. We only need to even onboard the entire world. We only need like 2 more orders of magnitude, really. So that's already 2 orders of magnitude. We just say, instead of 1 megabyte blocks, we have like 10 megabyte or 50 megabyte, which is, I've done the math on my blog. The issue is not the a lot of the problems with large blocks actually just go away if they're optional, because if they fail, then it doesn't really affect anyone else. And even if they fail, they can, like, they're just on pause until internet speeds and disks costs fall. The blockchain will just be paused. You can always pick it back up again while everyone goes back to temporarily using
Can you
layer
just
1.
reset? Like, you kill
Yeah.
this blockchain and start a new one?
Another thing you can do is, since the sidechains are already vulnerable to like a 6-month minor like death attack, you can just say, we'll do UTXO, we'll use UTXO or some kind of UTXO snapshot, and we'll just discard. And once we get to month 7, we'll just, on a rolling basis, on a staggered basis, we'll just discard the old block data permanently. And then that really makes a big difference also. So it's like this weird cache.
There's also that ZK coins proposal that could
lots
work
of other
very
stuff.
well.
The other thing is, any hard fork wish list, any new invented thing, such as a ZK sync, zero sync, other stuff like that. Any new thing that's invented, parallelization, some kind of hard drive, like some kind of hardware thing that does ECDSA or whatever, anything you want, you have competition now. And so this is more than enough, actually. This makes a difference between success and failure. You get like 3 or 4 orders of magnitude out of this. And that's what it takes, because not every transaction needs to be the fully maximum security guard. You need a computer the size of the sun to break through. So you just don't need, like Ross Albright maybe needed that for Silk Road, but when you buy coffee, you can do it on the large block sidechain. You don't actually care about decentralization. It's all about the network effects when it comes to that question.
So again, you're approaching it from the use case perspective, but you essentially didn't disagree. I mean, the same global state is not going to scale. You're just, I guess your proposal is a different way of leveraging the global state.
Yes, it's not global.
Now, so what you're proposing is then subsequently not global, right? But it's still based on
Right.
the same global state of Bitcoin.
Well, again, the small block layer 1, you have layer block, you have the SPV headers of layer 1, which are 80 bytes per block, which is 4.4 megabytes per year, which might as well be 0, right? Because it's so small. So that's the baseline. Then you have the layer 1 blockchain, which is a global state. But then you have small layer 1 blocks and you have large layer 2 blocks. You have like 10 of those, of which 9 you're not going to pay any attention to, because it's going to be like US East, Lordaeron. You don't care about that one. And you're only going to care about US East, and you're not going to care about Azeroth.
Well,
So it's not global now. 90% of it is discarded, and then the new ones can have new invented things, fraud proofs or whatever. So the idea that it's a global state is not completely true. It's true it was
No,
right.
Bitcoin is. I'm not talking.
For layer one, the mandatory full. It was right to sort of treat it as if it was, but otherwise, it's really not. It's all just like. I mean, think about it like this: when you use a checking account, you don't have a global state of the whole, but it still works. It doesn't work great. It's not the good, it's not absolutely. People have a spectrum of what they want and need, and if as long as you have a market where you can move the coins among these different things, you can keep your pocket change in your hot wallet on the large block sidechain, and then your life savings can be on the small block chain. So none of that stuff they told you about blockchains not scaling is true. That's just something Greg Maxwell said once. Everyone was afraid to contradict him.
So two things again. You're approaching it from a use case. You're not. I mean, what's the actual disagreement here? So Bitcoin as the layer one, as the global state itself does not scale. You can leverage the global state.
Well,
That's fine.
I wouldn't. I'm not in favor of unlimited blocks on L1. If that's what you're asking,
No,
that wouldn't work.
you're in favor of leveraging the global state using your drive chain mechanism.
So is the Lightning Network, though, in a way, because Lightning Network you have to monitor everything for the justice transaction trigger, right? So you have in order to run a Lightning node, you need a layer one full node.
Yes, correct.
Right. So that's exactly the same.
Yes, but the thing.
Would you say that Lightning doesn't scale?
it doesn't.
I guess it has the same. Well, the thing is, it has the same. We've been discussing this for like. I guess this is a thread in our show. Is like what are the limitations? Because you're still limited. You're still limited by the Bitcoin itself, right? Because ultimately you need a UTXO, and that's where the issue is. Because there's just not enough to go
when
around.
You say you need a UTXO, I mean, like with Bit300, you may not. What the analogy I use, and this is what I was trying to get. This is okay. I'll just skip the Bank of International Settlements is a bank where all the different feds have an account there. It's a big pyramid. The Bank of International Settlements at the top, Bank of Japan, U.S. Federal Reserve, European Central Bank. They all have an account there, and then your account if you have like I don't know if you sound kind of vaguely American to me, but if you have an account at like Chase or Wells Fargo or something, Chase and Wells Fargo, they have an account at the Fed. The Fed is like a clearinghouse for all the different banks, and the Bank of International Settlements is like a clearinghouse for all the different Feds. And then you're down at the bottom, and you have never owned. No human you have ever met has ever owned a Federal Reserve, an actual Federal Reserve, the thing. And no one has owned a Bank of International Settlement, whatever the hell they're called.
I'm following your explanation. I'm just not following what it is you're arguing.
I'm saying the analogy is layer one is the Bank of International Settlements, which most people have never heard of. So let alone most people don't have a UTXO there.
Yes, but yes, but the fundamental difference between the two is the permissionlessness of the system.
I'm just saying that
that's the point.
People can come in and they could maybe live their whole life at one of the caching layers. And I'm saying if you're not open-minded to that, which I would respect if you were not, but if you aren't, you are kind of screwed now because the layer one block size is it is what it is. And
yes,
right. So
but I don't care. I don't care about my point is I don't care about those people. I don't care about the plebs. I don't care about any people. I just care about what is the thing. What is the Bitcoin thing? Okay, and what are the what's the continuation development
Hey,
of
I
that
just don't understand
thing?
how someone could look at Warcraft 2 and then Warcraft 3 is like such a better experience in every way, like the music and just everything, like the
The cutscenes were nice.
expansion. Yeah, the cutscenes are great.
Yeah.
The plot of the story is pretty
Yeah, I
good.
mean, you got the young prince like
He's
going
great.
out, and then all the rose petals, and was shit, and
That's
coming back,
great.
and then
He's just
kills
kills
his
him,
father, and then
eating you.
yeah, man,
It's great. This
it hits
kingdom will
hard.
fall. The bell's ringing. Yeah, it's great. And then you immediately play as him again. And then, oh my gosh, when he comes back, when you play as Illidan, and then he's on like the hill, and you're like, what the heck? Plot twist. Anyway, so it's just
So
like I can't believe that you just
what
didn't love every aspect of it. Like I
no,
was like, my
so
mind was so blown by
so
it.
what I'm going here with this, because it started out with, okay, boohoo, they didn't do CTV, they didn't do my bit 300, but they did Taproot.
Yes, but it's not so much a boohoo. It is a boohoo to some extent, but it's like the suffering will continue until rationality returns to Bitcoin.
The point is that if you just look at Bitcoin and the layer one and the global state thing, it's like, okay, how can we improve on this thing without without users, and how can we do, and what are the current things going on? I guess Taproot was like a really logical next step
No,
in
come
terms
on,
of
you
improving
don't
the
really
thing.
believe that.
No, I actually
He
do.
doesn't. He doesn't actually believe that. So we'll just move on to the more important point, which is that we don't care about the plebs just out of our own selflessness. That's not the only reason. That is a reason. You should always do something. If you have a selfish and a selfless reason for doing something, you should always do that thing because there's something in it. But if something's completely selfless, then there's nothing in it for you. If it's completely selfish, it makes you look bad. But if there's something where you've got a selfless reason and a selfish reason, you should be signed. That should be your number one priority right there.
Yeah, but
So what I'm saying is the
the
network
background
effect.
is, yes,
It's
but
the network
the
effects. We're going
background
to
of it.
lose. We have a. It's
Yes,
not
but we haven't
happen
lost,
tomorrow.
Paul.
It's
Paul,
not.
we haven't lost.
It's not
So
going to happen tomorrow. But we
right,
eventually we will be. It will be replaced, and the coin will go to zero.
yes, but the same would happen without implementing Taproot. So the thing for me, it's an epistemological issue, right? Like, who is the user? And okay, there are a ton of users, and there are a ton of use cases, and the whole thing with Bitcoin, my analysis on the problem with Bitcoin, or people in relation to Bitcoin, is expectation management.
No, we need to win the idiot vote because they're the middle of the bell curve, and if we don't, whoever gets the middle of the bell curve first will win,
no,
and
so
everyone else will die out.
apparently we need to disappoint the middle of the bell curve over and over and over again, and the reason we do is because people make stupid promises over and over again. So we started out with Roger Ver, with Bitcoin being free and instant and private and whatnot, right? And
That
that was a
was
lie.
a talking point at the beginning. Well,
Yeah,
that was true at the
then
time. I
and
agree with
now
what you were saying about.
there are similar lies with, yes, okay, so but saying it was true at the time, it was also obvious that it
That it
wasn't
would
going to be
not
true for very
going to
long.
be true. From his point of view, it was obvious that the block size would increase
I guess so, but it didn't.
because, as you know, we can go down the line. And I mean, I'm a small blocker on L1, and I think Satoshi sort of was also, because the big data point is that Satoshi himself was the person who put the block size limit in, and he did not phase it out, even though he knew how to phase out things. So since he described exactly how, but he didn't do it, and he would have known that it would be like. So the point is, you can go down the line, and you can read the history in a way that suggests that it was very likely that it would. And in fact, I think like if you could just like easily, like for example, if I could go on a time machine and they said you have a mission, your mission is. Now, I'm a small blocker on layer one, so I wouldn't agree. But if let's just say they have some way of persuading me, the mission is to go back in time and persuade Bitcoin to become large block. I think I could easily do that because I actually think it was close. And what Roger Ver and what Brian Armstrong lacked was just a little bit of technical knowledge that would have put them over the top, like the soft fork extension block would have given them all the block space that they needed. And they just didn't want to do the engineering. They didn't understand how that worked, probably.
Also, it just
So
from
I
a
would go,
technical perspective is not instant, right? You need the confirmation. It's the all that
sure.
stuff. But so the same problem we have now is like we have stupid narratives around Lightning, for example,
We
with
do.
stupid promises. So it's because every time people are so damn desperate in convincing other people into Bitcoin, probably to pump their bags or save the world or whatever, right?
You're right.
Like
Yes.
if
This is
it's
a
pumping their
desperation.
bags or saving their world, I don't care.
People are
They're still
tilted.
talking. They're talking bullshit,
Right.
and then it takes a couple of years, and then everybody's disappointed again because they have the wrong expectations of what the system actually is. So that's the reason why I stepped off of that entirely, and I'm just like, I don't give a fuck about anybody's use case, other than what is this system and how can we optimize it. And in that light, I think Taproot is a very big improvement because
No, you don't.
you
No one is
uh,
discussing that. Well,
hmm?
Taproot, we could have Taproot. Doesn't matter. Like we could have Taproot and other things. The only problem is that we people just waited many years and promised giant things about Taproot, but it's just a very small
Do you
optimization.
believe, like, I saw at two Bitcoin Miami conferences ago, I walked into a giant auditorium and I saw Pierre Rochard say in front of everyone that this is the biggest smart contracting upgrade in blockchain history. Taproot is coming to Bitcoin Core. Do you believe that is? Do you believe that Taproot is like adds smart contracts to Bitcoin? Like,
It allows for horizontal scaling of contracts, so
I
that's what
mean,
it
in the
does.
cooperative, in some of the cooperative cases, sometimes.
No, so the because the whole Taproot the meat and bones is mass, right? I mean, if
Yeah,
you ask
mass.
me,
Right.
the whole Taproot thingy, right? It's just a nice feature within the mass construct. But the whole point of it is masked, and that gives horizontal scaling to to uh, to Bitcoin contracts. So
Well,
you
like
can
such
put.
as what though? Because like 99% of the transactions are like pay to pubkey hash or
Are
equivalent.
you seriously? I mean, you're smarter than this, right? To come with this stuff. You understand. You do understand that the scripting thing is apparently that damn hard that somebody needed to put the effort into coming up with miniscript, which is like this template composite
Miniscript is just for
part, so
doing
that.
multi-sig, just
Hmm?
for exchanging multi-sig policies. There's
So
not that much there.
I don't
yes,
think
but
we should
the whole
do.
point is that you in the entire development stack, the bottom thing is like it's possible technically, and then it needs to be put into the development kits and all this
Oh my
stuff, and it
gosh!
needs
I
to
mean,
it needs some
I just
standardizations, and
you
you need the
see.
descriptors, and you need the
Uh,
descriptors because you need to make sure that you can actually manage the stuff. And then if you have some sort of standards
I don't
figured
agree
out,
with
it's like,
this.
okay, then we can put it in the development kits, and then people can put it into their wallets, and then slowly. I mean, this is a slow damn process, right?
I think
Yes,
this
but
is
it's not. That's not
disastrous.
what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, I know this is a disastrous line of conversation now because I think the it's like the idea that people are waiting, people are champing at the bit, and they're going to get now once they get their descriptor wallets, they're going to write like what, like what we would have needed instead is op. It would be much better to have op vault like 9 years before whatever this hypothetical use of a taproot horizontal taproot contract like that it's not a real thing that like when Jameson Lop will tweet about people who are kidnapped from the airport and then they like will cutting off people's fingers and pulling out their teeth to steal their Bitcoin, which Op Vault could protect, or just any of the things that the CTV would have done or that BIP 300 would have done that are like real problems that affect a huge percentage of the users. One of which is just that all the large block of people left and started a competing project.
I do
We
think that
don't
the
have,
CTV part is important. That's an yeah, we need that.
and we
Well, we
could
need a
do
couple.
Zcash level
We need a couple.
privacy. Well,
We need
that's important.
couple of things. Yeah.
So, I mean, who like it's really implausible. And then the descriptor wallets are torture. I mean, do you like descriptor wallets? Like, it's like a wallet used to be take the third key and then take the fourth key and then take the fifth key and then after that take the sixth key out of the pile. And now it's like just to make one is absolutely horrendous. It's like there's like checksums in the you have to like make this like multi-step process that you know.
Somebody made a chart.
Have you tried
Somebody
running a
made
Lightning node?
a friend of mine made a chart. Maybe I can bring it up. It's amazing about the
How to make a
I will
descriptor.
just use this chart as the picture for
It's like literally like how to make a descriptor wallet is like derive building a computer, derive building a transistor, derive all programming languages, create the first compiler. It's like, why do we even need like it reminds me of what happened with the HD wallets, which I also don't like. I like the idea of them being deterministic, but I don't. The hierarchy I think hasn't paid off at all, and it's just
why? Okay,
because you can have a path where one of the numbers along the path is basically just another private key, and now the money has been destroyed.
Yeah.
So you go like one
have to
slash one
memorize that
slash
stuff.
slash 5,387 slash and then 1 2 3 4, and it should have just been 1 2 3 4 5. Because the harder this stuff is to understand, the more it just becomes basically closed source, and it just becomes inaccessible to the end user. The whole point is the user's mind is what we're supposed to be amplifying when we build technology. And if we just some of this stuff like descriptors, I just think are, and I also feel the same way about ZK stuff. I think this is going in the not in a good direction. This is making it much harder for regular people to have sovereignty over their money. What's the point of being open source if it's utterly indecipherable? It might as well be a binary file. That sort of thing.
I mean, you. I mean, blame asymmetric cryptography as the basis for identity, dude. I mean, key management is just hell, and in some sense, I think it always will.
People should work on that instead of.
Yes, but that's what they are working on. I mean, that's the whole point of the HD wallets, and that's the whole point of the descriptor things is also like dealing with the complexity of all the different types of transactions you're going to be able to do, and that your wallet actually understands what's going on.
Yeah, but you see, that's the other side of Mast, though. Is that Mast is kind of cool, but now you have descriptors. You can't just have keys.
Yes, that's true.
Well,
I
don't
guess
know. Like, how
in
long
some
is
sense
these
that
poor
that
people who
was
are going to
always...
do the chain code residency in the summer? They're going to have to spend half the summer learning about descriptor wallets, whereas before it would have been like literally like 25 seconds.
Yes, but you can't. So your proposal is to continue the crock brain usage of Bitcoin that we started out with, which is
I would say
I got input,
it
I
should
got
always
output, I got single sig. Ugh,
I
that
think
the...
my proposal would be I would say that being able to run a full node is the most important. I wrote about this in Measuring Decentralization in 2015 September. The cost of running a full node is the metric for decentralization.
Yes,
I would say part of that cost is understanding what the node is doing, because if the node is a black box and someone swaps it for something else and you don't know, then this is effectively you're trying to run the full node. So part of running the full node is knowing that you have run the full node. And so I would say we have to keep the cost of understanding every single thing that the full node is doing down, just like we have to keep the block size limit down. So everything, this fucking weirdo descriptor wallet bullshit they add is like a block size increase to me.
If you're worried about the descriptor wallet, I think you should try running a Lightning node and understanding the Lightning specs.
Well, Lightning is also. I think Lightning is easier to understand than descriptor wallets. Honestly,
it's easy. It's easy in general, but if you go to the details, all the
One thing I learned about Lightning that I didn't know before is that if people merely moon settler explained this to me, that if two Lightning people talk to each other and they just disagree over what they think the prevailing L1 fee is
they
today,
close the channel.
they must uncooperative. The only solution is to immediately uncooperative close. Like, why don't they cooperative close? They can't just say we disagree on the fee, and it's just no. Whichever one is more conservative about the fee just panics, and it just says we can't trust that person. Immediate uncooperative close. So if the fees change, they can quickly. Is enormously cascading effect. Of course, the fees change; it will cause a bunch of stuff to close, which will
That happened
appear
during the last fee spike, right?
exactly.
VHF?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a problem in itself because
There is.
You can set up a whole bunch of economic relations like Bitcoin contracts or UTXOs or whatever Lightning channels over time with a rate limit of 4 megabytes. But then the crux of the matter is, what if everybody needs to the odds that everybody needs to take an action on chain because they require the insurance of on chain settlement. The odds that they all need it at the same time are actually very high because
Yes.
the same factor is influencing them all, making them want to access that insurance. So if there is like an economic collapse or crisis, then all of a sudden everybody needs to go on chain, and then there
Like the
is a bottleneck, and
2008,
then
people are
everybody
going to
is
write
fucked
a
up.
big
Yeah.
documentaries about this. 2008, the Lightning liquidity crunch or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Well, in
Yep.
fairness, they have a new super complicated update to the spec that uses anchors, and then you can CPFP the thing, so you don't have
Yes,
to
but then
agree on the
Anchor.
fee.
you can change. Then you can change the bid, but still everybody is bidding for the same block space, so
Yeah, but
there's still congestion.
the changing the fee won't necessarily cause the channel to close, but there are other things that can cause the channel to close.
Yeah,
But
but
I think what was it? The bag, secure the bag. I mean
that's
that's
what I was going to
ultimately
say. That's what
yeah,
I was
that's
going to say.
ultimately the solution to this, right?
Well, that doesn't really. What I was going to point out is how funny it is that no one cared about CTV, but that can help slightly because what it means is that if you're living in a congested time, only you only pay to the hash. You don't have to actually put the whole. But it does it loses efficiency overall, of course, because there's an intermediate step.
Yeah, but the
But it
thing
does
is
say
that there's less pressure in time
right.
because the other party is ensured that they'll get the money. It's just going to take a very long time.
Right.
As opposed to them not being sure about anything because there's nothing being confirmed on chain.
What I think about these discussions is that people are just talking about very adversarial environments, and oh, they will take my money because whatever, they will confirm a transaction before me and whatnot, and let's prevent that. But in practice, what happens is I'm running my Lightning node and I talk to someone I trust a lot and say, oh, let's open a channel. And then we open a channel, we're happy with our channel. And the next day we look and the channel is closed. So I talk to the guy, oh, why did you close the channel? Oh, I didn't close. You closed. And no one closed the channel. And now we have to take the UTXO and make another channel. That's
You
what
can look
happens.
online. You can look
So
online and
Paul,
find who closed it. Uncooperative.
Yeah.
But I think you. Well, yeah. I mean, like these are all best case scenarios, as he's saying, right? And which are also not good. But what's your question?
no, I was just going to say that this is how we distribute our labor. It's like I hand wave all the technical implementation details in time, and that's the only thing VHF sees.
I don't know
Well,
what I'm talking about
yeah,
here.
I think like Lightning, it was never supposed to be this scaling messiah, and it as a result of the block size war, people needed an answer when someone like Roger Ver would say like what he would say something like what about payments, and then people would say, oh, Lightning Network will fix that. And then since the large blockers were criticizing the Lightning Network, no one in Bitcoin could criticize it, and now it is
Now I create posts on Twitter criticizing the Light Network, and a lot of Bitcoin cashers come up and start to agree with me and say, "Oh, you finally found out." And I don't know what
An
were
author,
the criticism
an author
before.
growth hack.
I don't. It's
Pandered every faction.
What confused me was that I think this was a year or 2 years ago. There was a video of what is the crew Jack Dorsey funds. It's like the Block or something like that.
Spiral,
Yeah, what is that called?
Spiral,
the LDK.
whatever. Yeah,
We
with
don't
Blue Matt. The
we
Blue
don't
Matt's in
blue
there, right?
sky.
Yeah, yeah. So so and then in like a promo video, the first question was like, okay, what is the Lightning Network? And then they explain it's like, yeah, it's a way to do cheap Bitcoin transactions. And I'm like, why? Why are you giving this shitty answer?
Well, it's a promotional video.
Yes, but like, why? For whom are you actually giving this shitty answer? I understand it if you say, well, like it's a liquidity network. Nobody understands you, but I don't care if nobody. That's people not understanding you is better than people having like a misconception and then like wrong
Well, the
expectations that then
misconception
later have
didn't
to be
start
managed.
there, right? It
Not
started
when
much before.
the poor editor guy gets a bunch of footage and he's just like, what is all this? And then he finds one sentence that he could understand. Oh, cheap. And he's like, okay, we'll put that in the video. It's like Steven. It's like from The Simpsons. Esteban Spielbergo or whatever. He's like editing it. He's like, okay, I'll put this.
And there's like
part
a
in.
Muppet version of Jack Dorsey in the
Yeah,
video as well.
exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think to be honest with you, I think like if we move forward, if we took a time machine like 10 years in the future, I would think most Bitcoin transactions will be on a BIP 300 sidechain, and very few, if any, will be on the Lightning Network. But I would be interested to know if you think that is the case.
What happens if with the fees? I think I had an answer for this, but I forgot. Like if everybody's using these Thunder side chains, they're very big, so the fees are very small, or
I
not.
think the fee rate will probably stay small on the large block sidechain. It'll probably stay like 25, 50 cents US. On L1, I think the fees will go up a little to like $4 or $5 in the enormous Bitcoin success world. Since it'd be per fee rate, the sidechains will collect huge fees, just like Visa level fees.
But you need a
That's
lot
my
of.
guess. I may be wrong, of course. People can play they'll look up this video in 10 years and then they'll play the sound effect.
Isn't it better to use the any private blind merge mining technique instead of BIP 300 one?
Well, why do you think that it is?
I don't know if it feels more elegant, easier. The miners don't have to implement a custom protocol for handling the block the
The
sidechain
idea
hashes.
of BIP 301 is the miner is bribed in the main chain block in some random transaction that uses BIP 301. And so the miner can now they have a bunch of bids. You have a sidechain block that's worth 4 Bitcoin, and then people are bidding 3.8, 3.9, 3.99, 3.991. They're bidding up, and they say, "Put my code in
Yeah, but
the
that's the
main chain
same.
Coinbase."
That's the same on the any private scheme, like the Ruben Sonsa came up with. You know that
Yeah,
the space
yeah,
change thing.
yes. And so the idea is with BIP 301, what BIP 301 does is it says if the code is really in the Coinbase, then this layer one transaction goes through, and also all the competing bids, all of the competing bids are invalid, so they cannot be in a block. So when you bid, you know that either my bid is going to win and I'll get the block, the sidechain block, or I'm not going to win, in which case this transaction will never make it into any block. So that's why I wrote the block validity rules for 301 to ban all those. And that's the point of BIP 301. I think any prove-out just does a chain of hashes, so there's no way. The point of 301 is partly to just help everyone work together without trusting each other. And it's partly to make sure that it maximizes the amount of revenue earned by the L1 miner.
That's the same thing that the space chain technique does. But you don't have to implement any custom rules. You just put the hash there on a random transaction, and all the sidechain miners, they compete using RBF. Like they just send a new transaction paying more fees that replaces the previous one. And they all spend from the same UTXO. There's a sequence of transactions being spent in each of these. There's a hash of the sidechain block.
Yeah, because the miners don't have to put it in a Coinbase per se. It's just anything in the block is controlled by them. So I think that could also work. I don't really feel strongly about it
I'm just
being one
saying
way or
that
the other.
like you need less changes, so
Yeah.
maybe it will make it
Well,
more
again, like when
appealing.
I came up with it, there was like one idea back in the day in 2015, and there was like many soft forks back then, like all the time, so it wasn't really a big deal. And then I split it into 2 BIPs so that it would be easier to read. And of course, because technically you don't need to, you could have a sidechain that doesn't have merge mining. You could have a sidechain that doesn't have a blockchain. You could have a sidechain that's just like nothing. So they were technically separable. So I decided to just separate them into 2 BIPs, and I just made them each a soft fork. And that was like more than 5 years ago. That was long before.
Yeah, I
That was
know.
long before SegWit. That was long before any priv out. So maybe I'll tell you what, I will revisit that, and maybe I will.
Yeah, but we still need any proof out for this to work. So or
Right. So that's
CTV.
the other thing, is
So
it's kind of like, what's the point? Yeah, exactly. So that's, I just thought like 300, 301 will activate at the same time, because in fact, I think in the very next month after November 2015, we had 3 soft forks that activated in the same go. So nothing was further from my mind than thinking like, oh, I need to minimize like the number of soft forks. Like that wasn't like a thing at all back then. So I was just like, whatever. And now I still feel that way today. I still feel like there's thousands of pull requests merged into Bitcoin Core all the time. And just think about like any of them could have like assert 0, or they could like dial out to some keylogger or something, install some keylogger on your computer. Like any single line of code could be horrible. And in fact, that happened with Bitcoin Cash, right? Remember we had the assert 0 shirts people made after their node crashed or something. So
no, I
that's
don't
one
remember.
line of code. So there's thousands of pull requests, being merged to Bitcoin Core, and it's like those that are a
There are
soft
a lot
fork
of
are treated
refactors.
differently.
There's a lot
Yeah, a
of
lot of
refactors.
pointless refactoring, that each of which could be, and then one of the refactors had like an inflation bug, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
So that was caught by Amaury Sachet from Bitcoin Cash. So it's like, it's all lies, basically. That's this thing of like this whole paradigm of, Paul, you need changes from Bitcoin. The whole paradigm is just wrong. But I just kind of sit here and take it because uh, there's no arguing
Be-
with.
because you're the Optimus Prime of self pity.
I
That's the
suppose
reason.
I don't. It's just, well, you understand what I'm saying, though, don't you? Like, there's thousands
What
of pull
about
requests. Who cares about if it's a soft fork or not? If it were a hard fork, it would just kick you off the network. So we know it's a soft fork. Every single one of those refactors is a soft fork in a way.
what uh well, I guess the point of the refactor is that it doesn't actually change
Well, if
the
it's
behavior.
really
But
a
it does, if it's
refactor,
backwards compatible, it doesn't change the behavior.
No, it's about forwards compatibility.
Right.
But
the
so one
refactor
of the
could
things I
have
wanted to,
bugs. Yeah,
yeah, true.
yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is that because there are these 2 specific bibs, but if you have like enough things, so we have like the AnyPref out and the CTV, and you get we get a whole bunch of other stuff in, right?
Yeah.
Then eventually we get at a point that you can
You
construct.
could simulate drivechain in a very inefficient
Yeah,
way. That is probably not
yeah.
as secure because it doesn't keep miners on as short a leash. But it's probably, yes, that would happen. We may already like be there in some level of inefficiency. I don't even know, but maybe.
Do you
So
understand
is
that
that
that spook chains idea? I don't understand it. I
I
tried.
don't remember it. I think I did understand it for
It was
1 minute.
something from Jeremy Rubin. Like you could put a counter on a transaction, and then you have to bump the counter, and then you would do it to bump the counter until you got to some number, and then you can withdraw the money.
I don't
Something.
think people appreciate the goal of BIP 300 is to take something that is normally a minor courtesy. It says the miners have a lot of control, and the BIP 300 part shrinks all that control down to what may be a safe and tolerable level, which may or may not be. I think if it doesn't, then we're probably the whole sidechain idea is probably screwed, and we should just give up and embrace multi-coin altcoin world, which we'll be stuck with because the human creativity, is not going away, and so there will be many chains.
To do what
And
exactly?
disagreements won't go away either. There will be every time there'll be disagreement, just like there is between should we have Taproot or not, should we have CTV or not. So the disagreements will never end, and the new features will always be invented. I think one of the saddest things about the lack of sidechains is that we've only seen the scam world of altcoins. It's kind of like you put someone in charge, they screw up, and then they say, "Well, this is why no one should be in charge, or you shouldn't have put me in charge."
And
Like,
but what is there outside of the scam
I think is
mods?
enormous. A whole world, all of DNS could be fixed. That was 2010 Namecoin. So I can go into huge detail if you want,
But
which I'm sure I
no,
will.
no, you don't have to, because we already decided that it's a useless useless
You
effort, and it's
decided that,
solved. It,
Constant.
it's a useless effort, and it's solved
Search engines.
search engines.
Well, why do you say that? Because, like, why do domain names exist?
Because we didn't have engines. That's what he's going to say, I think. But
Well, you're kind of beholden to the search engine, though. Then,
Yep.
well, we don't want that. You want to
Nope.
own the property right to the name.
Yes, Paul. But I'm in a very short in recent times. I I made a shift. So because there's something interesting
Now
going on,
you're
right?
starting a search engine
We
company.
we currently are like in the I guess we already passed the apex of the internet, but we're like, let's say that today is the 1999 of the Matrix, right? So in the
Okay.
Matrix, they're like perpetually in the 1999 because that was the apex. The reason is because they made these AIs, like ChatGPT and stuff, which primary function, or like not primary feature, is that they reduce the cost of making noise, coherent, effective noise. That's really good at that. So they scraped the internet and then used all the data on the internet to create a machine that was able to create really good noise, really fast. So the internet's dead right now. So they used the internet in order to be able to destroy the internet. So that's where we are now. I mean, I can't be sure about any form of data anymore because it can be fake. And what I then realized is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't fucking matter that you have like that you can doctor somebody's voice and image and all that kind of stuff, because people don't share links, they share fucking screenshots anyway. So you don't need some crazy AI. All you need is Microsoft Paint.
Okay, but what does that have to do with why? You understand that what Namecoin offers is many
The
things.
point is nobody's using URLs anymore.
I think this is a
Nobody's using just people just send
Well,
screenshots to each other.
this is part of because when you it's partly because we don't have the Namecoin sidechain that people don't use URLs. It's an ecological thing. Like if the stuff sucks, then no one will
Sweet,
go
sweet
there.
summer child. you're still hopeful and optimistic. I love that.
Yes.
well. I
But
think
that
I
died
think
inside
when
of me in
when
the
you only
past
have
month.
the .com domains, people use it to remember what were the website's names, and now like we have a million TLDs, so it's impossible to remember. You have to type something, and then
It's more difficult.
you have to
Yeah,
remember. It's like the HD wallet. Like if, you all have to remember the name of the site and also the TLD, which is a different thing. That it's a different name. You have to
I
remember.
agree. That was a problem, and people still pay a huge premium for the .com, and they don't really like the other stuff. And it's .com didn't really mean .commercial; it just meant internet, which
Yeah.
was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But what the Namecoin sidechain would let you do is you will always be able to message someone. You don't need to know you only need to know their one name. You don't need their phone number. You don't need anything. You have an encrypted connection to them. You can send them money. You can send them email. They have spam resistant. You can always authenticate them, but it's spam resistant messaging. You can always introduce yourself to someone with like the pay mail idea, where you say, I really want to message someone that I don't have, we're not whitelisting each other. Like you want to message Adam back for the first time. It looks up him in the software. You pay $100 or you pay $10 or whatever it is. And it sends the intro to him. And then you have a connection and you can send money to each other and you don't need to exchange addresses. You can exchange messages. You can do
Yes, and now we
invoices.
have now we have like key pairs and search engines that's going to
Yeah,
effectively
but
do the
people
same
hate
thing.
the key pairs suck. Key pairs are not
Yep.
fun.
Yep. Key pair suck.
Think
Key
about like
management
how a
sucks.
darknet market works is basically a lot of that with many extra steps is a lot of phishing. There's phishing for like the onion address. So it's like like a darknet market has the URL get replaced fraudulently. It's like a phishing attack. This happens all the time. The darknet markets are absolutely huge. That is so you can of course argue about whether or not that is ethical. Some people say it's very ethical. Some people say it's the only ethical thing. Some people say not ethical at all. But that's this is a start of what a different internet would look like. One where all you need is this one name. You have it for the rest of your life. You can never be deplatformed. Look about with Nostr. With Nostr, you need to share this weird key. But if you had the Namecoin sidechain, it would just be one name that was for everything, for Instagram, for Nostr, for whatever, Twitter. There would be no thing where these are all real problems that people really face. Like some of my presentations, I have a situation where a guy does a YouTube video. In the bottom right hand corner, he has to put like all his different names. Here's my name on Facebook. Here's my name on Twitter. They're like slightly different from each other. And this is frustrating for anyone who wants to actually take control of their own online identity. So it's an ecological thing. We haven't.
Edward Snowden made a Nostr key, and he like brute forced
Yeah,
it for many days until he got the prefix looked
like a
like
vanity
Snowden.
key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
now anyone who can do the same brute force will be able to impersonate
right.
him very easily
Exactly.
because people will assume that the beginning.
Exactly. The Canadian truckers thing is a good example of how horrible, what big failures we are. It should be immediately possible for them to knowing that we had to like figure out how to onboard them. We ultimately failed, and the Canadian government like seized all their Bitcoin. So what we just need to change the way things. Just the fact that we have usernames and passwords on sites,
But
that would
but
itself
Paul,
also be destroyed by the Namecoin sidechain.
I agree. But is the trucker so what's the biggest what is a bigger failure? Failing the truckers or the fact that we have these stupid ETFs coming up that are not natively Bitcoin?
The
They're not
truckers.
using
Truckers
Bitcoin
is the
in
bigger
any.
failure. The ETF is icing on the cake. No one has ever cared about the ETFs. They just people like the Winklevoss twins that have money in hedge funds or something. But you could always what MicroStrategy did by buying a bunch of Bitcoin and keeping it on their balance sheet. They just basically made an ETF. Coinbase was a Bitcoin ETF.
Yes,
There's
I
plenty
agree
of
with all
these.
those things, but I think
They were all
that's the bigger failure
they already
because that's
existed.
like because it's managing large sums of Bitcoin. Apparently, we can't even manage large sums of Bitcoin in the sense that you can create an ETF with it.
Well, but you see, that's sort of like not. That's not. That's their problem. If they put time into it, they'd figure out how to do it, and probably a bunch of people have. That's what I mean when I say Coinbase is a Bitcoin ETF. MicroStrategy is a Bitcoin ETF.
I think
It's
Coinbase is
true that
storing all the coins.
But they're not using Bitcoin
No, they're storing it
in
on
the sense that
Coinbase. Coinbase stores
But I
everything.
think it's a good thing. Anyone who owns Bitcoin is a Bitcoiner, and they are helping Bitcoin succeed. But the bigger thing is Bitcoin is designed to get money to basically the Canadian truckers, and so they have to not only be able to get it, but they also have to be able to spend it on whatever it is they need, lawyers, blah blah blah. So we're way off.
Bitcoin is designed to be censorship resistant.
Yeah, but it's so censorship resistant that we couldn't get it to the Canadian truckers, and we couldn't get it. They couldn't get it.
Well, apparently not Canadian truckers, but it should be able to allow for BlackRock to use it, but they're not.
Well, I think that didn't BlackRock didn't they have some success in getting something approved? I heard.
Yeah, but my point is that what they're going to do ultimately is like they're going to put the Bitcoin away in like some multi-sig or something, and that's like that's that, right?
Well,
and nobody cares or touches Bitcoin anymore.
What's so wrong with that, though?
Well, in the sense that it could have been more sophisticated on chain is at the moment that you buy if you buying the share is actually you're actually. I want to use the word physically, but it doesn't make any sense.
Well, why don't you just use whatever words come to mind, and we'll try to figure out what you're really, because I don't know what you're talking about at all.
So,
like,
you actually.
Oh my
so
God!
Let's say you actually get it.
BlackRock is buying Bitcoin and storing it in multisig. What failure?
Yeah,
to me, that's nothing like the Canadian truckers to me.
Yes, instead of the instrument itself being on chain in some form of contract, where if you be part of the contract with the key, etc.
We should have like a multi-owner
correct,
fund.
Yeah, something like that.
No,
yeah.
I mean, but we already have that because you just own your own UTXO.
Yeah,
I mean, ironically, CTV would be that also, in a weird way.
Instead of buying the ETF, you can just buy Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Isn't that the thing you want? If you buy the ETFs, because you don't want to hold keys.
If you believe in BIP 300, then you would just buy UTXO on the BlackRock sidechain or whatever. I don't recommend,
that's
theoretically possible.
No, I do think we failed the truckers. I also think that it's hopefully in time.
In a way, we also failed the people of Russia and Ukraine, because I think.
Well, not completely. It's somewhere there on a spectrum, right? Some people did benefit from it.
There would be more of a riot against Putin if he didn't have. They have the oligarchs just have so much money. And like they have the way the sanctions fall out is because there's always proxies. Some guys holding $100 billion or whatever, and for Putin, and they want to get that guy. If it was all Bitcoin, though, that guy could just straight up steal the money from Putin. It'd be hard, It'd be it's just more. It just makes the thing harder to concentrate. It's like this money, the privacy actually would end up helping. Is my guess. I'm not, I'm not an international criminologist or something, but I think that Bitcoin is not doing what it's supposed to do, which is give everyone control over their own money.
Yes, but it inherently can't give everybody control.
Well, I think that's if you think everyone needs to be on L1. That's what you're saying. Like that's what you're saying.
No, that's what you were saying.
What are you saying?
No, I'm saying that's impossible, but that's implied in what you were saying. It's like everybody being able to control their own money.
Well, think about like people can learn how to drive a car, which I think is more complicated than key management. It's just it's not set up to. People's heart wasn't in it. With the block size scaling war, they didn't want to say like, we should scale to the world. There were fewer and fewer people like saying that. Instead, they were saying stuff like, we'll be a store of value first, then we'll figure it out, ... Lightning Network, something. And so people didn't really take an attitude. They didn't take responsibility the way the people who designed the Warcraft 3 non-reforged sprite.
Yes, but then
they didn't take responsibility for this idea that everyone should do this.
Yes, but then we're getting back to what are you developing this thing for, or how are you developing this thing? And it's like you so desperately want Bitcoin to be something in particular, whereas I would say is like Bitcoin is what it is, and those are the constraints that you have to deal
So
with,
you're saying we shouldn't
right?
do anything and just accept the world as it is? Like, if you're
No, it's
hungry,
not. I'm not saying we
you
shouldn't do
shouldn't eat
anything.
anything. You
Yeah,
should
it is what it is.
accept that
If
you're
some people
hungry.
die, whether or not you suffer and die is you just suffer and die.
Yep.
So
See
you're
what
not
that's
And
going
then
to eat
first,
anymore.
so 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 so
I
so
mean, yeah,
so
it's
all
kind
the
of silly.
so all Roger Spears babies are going to die, but we are getting taproot. That's the way it works.
Yeah, I think this is the attitude that years of it's this pessimistic attitude and this attitude of stasis that has evolved out of the block size war and out of Segway 2X, which taught everyone that resisting change is the right thing to do.
No, so
And
I think
people
that's
feel
not fair because
frustrated
no, I
because
disagree. I
people look at
disagree because that's a
they
different
look
camp.
at me and Jeremy Rubin and they think changing Bitcoin is a mistake. It's not going doesn't work. So
Yes,
why
but Paul, this
bother?
is a different group of people. You're now complaining about the Grug brains who is like talk about ossification and it's like no changes to Bitcoin, blah 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 blah. It's good as it is. Like it isn't. Bitcoin isn't good as it is. It needs development. There are stuff that we need inside of Bitcoin. Um, I mean, there is some glorious vision on the horizon there somewhere with simplicity, and then we're basically done, right? Um,
I don't agree with
it's
that either, but that's a different question. I mean,
what
simplicity. I worry that if we have too much expressivity at the script layer, then actually it will just be the same as drive chain but worse because we won't have control over the whole category. So it'll be like more. It'll just be like a bunch of mosquitoes buzzing around, and instead of like these easily auditable things that everyone understands, like the Zcash sidechain, the large block sidechain.
but
Again, for me,
the
it all has to be
auditability.
understood
But the auto, but why does it need to be understood? I mean,
as the
it
full
doesn't need
node
to be
thing.
understood global. No, but it doesn't need to be understood globally. That's a local problem. That's the responsibility of auditing what you're doing
The
and understanding what you're
more
doing
people
is
understand, the better off they are.
yes, but it's restricted to the parties involved in the contract, right?
No,
And
because
yes,
you
they're
can
gonna
have.
need a lawyer. They're going to need some kind of Bitcoin lawyer to go through the contract or something. Whatever. I don't
Not
care.
every contract. Some of the contracts have bad effects on each other. So it's ironically the same thing that people mistakenly say about drive chain is what I would correctly say about simplicity, which is that some of the contracts actually interfere with each other, and you don't
How
want to have that.
how
You could
do they
write.
interfere
Well,
with each
one
other?
is the. Did you? I made a whole presentation about this in 2016. So one is there's like an Oracle contract. If one contract is just copying another contract, then the Oracle will never be able to charge a fee that compensates it for the opportunity cost of being honest. So it's impossible to have oracles unless the competing version is censored out, and that's the same for a Namecoin type of a thing. You don't want, and same for bit assets like NFTs or whatever. You don't want someone to copy the same name, something that says like this is the Google.bit. Then you can't have someone have a different contract that has Google.bit in it, someone like competing name universe. I mean, you could, but that's not what you would want. They would make
But
everything worse.
I don't see what the point here is other than those are then stupid constructs that don't really work.
But that's the point: is the parasite will kill the host and itself, and as a result, none of us will get the feature. None of us will get oracles. None of us will get Namecoin. And then people like you will say, "You see, there was nothing good that could have ever been built because it's all scams, and all we should do is just have Bitcoin transactions." So you'll end up being right, but it's only because you destroyed it all.
Hmm, maybe. So it's because I think but the difficult part here is that nobody seems to care. I mean, people are doing things on Ethereum, right?
Yes.
And then they're like, there's this thing called MEV, and it's like, yeah, so it's like a skewed playing field, right? You shouldn't be on here doing this stuff because it's not fair, right? You're not actually in a fair environment. Why are you such a retard? Why are you even on here, right? The terms and conditions are not favorable for you to be here, ultimately. So why are you making the choice to be here? Um, but apparently they still do, right? But
Right.
they also get into pump and dump schemes and whatever. So I guess people don't care.
No, I think they know that freedom and choice is more important than any temporary setback. And I think they think that they are the one, they're the user. So if they want to transact and bear the risk of MEV, there's a risk reward. You go into a casino, that the odds are not in your favor, but you might give it a try anyway because for any number of reasons, entertainment, whatever. So
The problem is
the
that
end user,
you're building a cathedral, and this is somewhere down there in the foundation, and you cannot. There is no point in saying it's like, okay, well, there are these short term risks that you can run, and you can either choose, and it's on your own, and maybe it's like no, but you're building like the cathedral on like a very skewed foundation,
well, what's the skewed
and you're going to
foundation?
fuck
The
it up.
MEV? The skewed
Well,
foundation is not having BIP 300. That is what will bring the cathedral down eventually. The reason why I don't like
the skewed foundation is that every application that requires something.
The reason it doesn't
that
bother
brings up
me
the
at all,
nature
and
of
the reason why I
MEV.
never really push aggressively for BIP 300 is because I'm just absolutely certain that it will eventually. People have getting closer and closer to my point of view over time. Before, no one understood anything that I was saying, really, and now more and more people do. We add more and more people to the friends list, and I think also the Lightning was the sacred cow for a while, but now that we have Arc, this sacred cow is finally being slaughtered.
Do you think so? What do you think about Arc?
Well, I think Arc is a good idea. The most important thing about Arc is that someone who was associated with Blockstream has come out and said that they have a lot of problems with the way Lightning works, and they have something new that is even more confusing. So that's the key, is that now everyone will say everyone is going to jump ship from Lightning to Arc, but maybe not, because in a sense, during the Lightning bubble, for whatever you want to call it, like from 2015 to present, you get a lot of people like VCs. They specialize in Lightning or whatever. All the big investments are in Lightning, so it's created an enormous incentive for people to just be dishonest and just keep repeating to each other about how great Lightning is. And so I don't know, once the VCs get involved, they have like marketing teams and whatever. So I don't know what exactly, but I think it opens the door to the idea that Lightning is only like a step on the path versus a final destination that just fixes everything.
But who actually that is so who that's actually interesting defends that narrative, other than retards on Twitter?
I think it's a mainstream part of the culture. So, for example, I think like Michael Saylor adopts this view that Lightning is the savior.
Yes, but he's.
Yeah, you're gonna have to say that he's not influential, which you painted.
No. I'm not gonna say it is not influential. It's like, to what extent is he actually interesting to the discussion, to this particular discussion? I mean, Michael probably has a lot of interesting things to say about Bitcoin, but not like on a technical side.
Yeah,
I think
it's
he
a
even
ball
made a
of
very
energy.
stupid mistake on mining not that long
He
ago.
did, right? That's true.
Yeah, on how mining
Yeah, I
works.
mean, he's
like a very
new,
trivial.
so I think that he will make a lot of mistakes.
What
But
did he
how do you
say?
think?
What did he say about money?
I think it was the efficiency thing on miners getting more efficient over time, something stupid like that.
I don't remember which it was, but it was one of the things where you like divide by the wrong. It's a thing that you like multiply and then divide it out, so it cancels. But he was saying like it made a big difference or something. I think it was something like that, about like the difficulty is higher, therefore the like whatever, I don't know, efficiency of the net. I don't remember what it was, but it was one of those like division errors.
Okay, I see.
I think it was the miners are getting more efficient and use less energy thing over time.
I think it was something like now since they are more energy efficient, that will be better for the environment. But in reality, they're just use twice as much electricity.
Yes, that was the yes.
Makes sense.
So that was
so really Michael Saylor, is that within the
yes.
Bitcoin technical discussion?
Yes.
Is that an important factor?
I think you don't like how should we put this? Like, he will say something, and because he's so rich, people will be afraid to contradict him because they want some of that sweet money in case he gives some of it out. So having a
You think so?
huge difference between net worth, often, especially in a strongly opinionated person. See, Roger Ver was better than Michael Saylor because Roger Ver was a little bit more like.
He gave the Bitcoin away. That
Yeah,
was
right, exactly. He
a
like
lot
he was
better.
like more of an attitude of maybe what you might call actually humility. I would say he was like a very kind of like,
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. I agree. I
and
agree there.
he was sort of haunted by the injustice done to him in the past, which gave him an
I never got the
empathy.
sense that he was disingenuous.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah,
you
I
know,
agree there.
Sailor, you kind of think like he is he is a little bit more stern, which is fine, which is completely fine. But it just means that it's Sailor's more like a debate type of an argument. Like he's calling that guy Raoul out as whatever. This is all unethical, and you're like a fraud or whatever, which was very funny, and he was right about that. So, but that's funny. But it's just kind of like when you have when you have someone a huge difference in net worth, it creates this barrier to honesty. It destroys the truth, and that will trickle down a lot. That trickles down to who gets invited to what parties and stuff, and that all that stuff trickles down.
We came here from, I think, the ossification thing angle of
Well,
like not changing
I said
Bitcoin.
that Sailor is one of these people who believes that Lightning
Oh yeah,
was.
the
So
lightning.
he's like,
Yeah,
you can just do
yeah.
whatever on Lightning. So if you wanted to do Zcash on Bitcoin, you could just do it on Lightning. He's one of those people
Yes. Okay,
who
but
would say
so
that.
we have. Yes. Okay, but that's like the stupid masses on Bitcoin Twitter have like these stupid narratives. But do the actual serious people within the within
I think it
the
matters.
more inner circle actually? Yeah. Okay. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does.
I'm just saying that the people that actually are putting in the effort,
I think
are
so. I
they
mean,
are they
it's
having
been
these type of
told to
arguments?
me by, I don't want to like name the names, but there are people who are like who are not that famous, but who are involved in the actual merging of code into Bitcoin Core
Hmm.
on GitHub. And those people told me they're like, well, you know, in order for something to a change to make it into Bitcoin of any kind, it has to be like popular, and so there can't be people
That's true.
complaining about it on Twitter. So there, that
That's
doesn't that
true.
just then that's like a direct quote, and that I think basically obliterates your argument. You know, in
No,
my opinion.
because I think the whole Jeremy Rubin episode is a good example of this.
Yeah, so
Where
do I.
yes, but I think there will be a redemption arc after this.
Yeah,
So
but
I
isn't in a
mean, you
way, isn't the redemption arc is its own indictment in a way? Because the redemption arc is, if anything, it will lead to a period of people being stupid in the opposite direction, where they'll say, "We don't
yes,
want to
but
know
I
the
appreciate
CTV."
that this is the reality of the thing.
Yeah,
This is also the reason why people say is that you shouldn't champion your own proposal. You should
yeah.
there should be
I think I
somebody else
agree
that
that
picks up
BIP
your
300 is
proposal.
too tied to me, and I wish it
Yeah,
weren't. But at the same time, I feel compelled. If someone asks a question, and I have an option between, I could give what I think is the absolute best, shortest, most memorable answer, or someone else can just ramble on what they think the answer is that may be wrong, then I will try to answer the question, and that's what other people do. And I try to make
well,
it not about me.
well,
I write the BIP text, I write the software, and that stands on its own. And I make a
but Paul,
site and I make videos and things. So I try not to make it
yes,
about me, but
yes, but that's all. That's but then when you make a 2 hour video on the topic, and then 50% of the content is you complaining about the fact that nobody seems to understand, that they don't put in the effort in understanding and that kind of stuff, which is then subsequently tying it to yourself again,
I don't think
right?
that's the case because what
Like
I'm trying to say.
I don't want to be an asshole with the self pity thing, but I do think it is a factor. And
I
it's like no,
think
but it's not appealing, right? It's just not appealing. A self pity Paul Sztorc complaining about nobody seems to understand, and I'm so smart. Is just is not appealing to the
I can
masses.
understand
So
that, but you have to look at it again from my point of view. I'm trying to explain it to those few people who will get it. I'm saying, listen, you may have heard on Twitter Jorge Timon say that this idea isn't good. But what I'm telling you is Jorge Timon admits on this tweet that he has not read the BIP and he doesn't know the difference between 300 and 301. And same with John Carvalho. He asked me right before we went on stage at Baltic Honey Badger. He's like, which one is 300? Which one is 301 again? And I'm kind of like, well, like you deserve to be told the truth.
So I think maybe there is a redemption arc for the drive chains as well, but that's after somebody else picked it up. And I mean, maybe we're slowly getting into that situation. I do think we're getting into that situation in regards to CTV, where because Jeremy stepped back from it pretty clearly. And then not long after, somebody else came up with like, okay, maybe we can do the op-volt thing. And then in the op-volt discussion, people got back to, well, maybe we can just do CTV then, because that's the conclusion of the discussion that's going on here.
But then it's
I
not
mean,
going to happen anyway. Like no one cares about upvote. The masses on Twitter.
uh,
If you bring
no, though
if you bring upvote,
it's going to be it's not going to be op-volt. It's probably going to be CTV or something like
they
it.
want upvote plus CTV. No.
I completely agree with you that probably my efforts to promote the BIP is seen as like a tug of war. It's like with a dog has a toy, and you try to grab the
Yes.
toy out, and now the dog really wants the toy. They're not giving it back. And so I think that you're right that Jeremy Rubin, he stepped back from it and made it more neutral. But what you're wrong about is that is a good thing.
Yes,
All
but
that's
I don't care
disaster.
about if it's not an
And it
odd, it's an
affects
is.
affects your Bitcoin investment negatively, and also
Yes, but it's not an odd, it's an is, Paul. It's like that's the nature of the world.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is I should manipulate people by reverse psychologying, sort of stepping away from the idea. Some of it is not even like my thing. Like in some sense, often I'll get invited. Like I was just invited to TabConf, like to speak about drivechain. I get the invite specifically, so it's not. So yeah, I mean, but I understand. I think I understand what you're
And I'm
saying.
not.
Can
And
you see it
the
going
point
the
is
other
not
way,
that the
though?
efforts are in vain. You're screaming at the clouds is a pre-required phase
You're right,
of going
exactly.
through all the
That's
motions.
kind
Yes.
of what I'm saying also, which is that
You might have stretched the screaming at the cloud phase a bit long.
yeah,
Well, I think
maybe.
we need
But
more.
at the same
We
time,
need more.
I'm not sure about that because it does strike me that even the big supporters often don't understand like parts of the idea, even though I like, and then the BIP, I tinker with it over time. That's part of it is I've been talking about this idea for a long time. Excuse me. But if you actually look at like, I do a lot of other stuff that's unrelated to drivechain, and the drivechain stuff is like me slowly tinkering with it, tinkering, and actually the BIP is like edited like once a year and stuff. There are changes actually, so that's like the dirty little secret is actually I'm kind of perfecting it as I go. Although I'm pretty sure it's now there's no way, I don't think there's anything about it that could be perfected. A lot of stuff you just don't know until you do all the code. You don't know all the details, But I think now we have the details and we have like the final version. So that's part of it as well, which is that on one hand I say, well, if people had the correct reaction to this idea back in 2015, all this other stuff would not have happened. Just FYI, all this other stuff that was very bad for Bitcoin, terrible. It was not good for Bitcoin to have the scaling war, even though the correct side won. It was not good.
I'm not sure
A
if
lot of
that's
people say that it's the best thing we ever did was get rid of the large blockers.
based on
I
what.
do not agree with that at all. I think that's a complete mistake. First of all, we want more people is better. Network effects are the norm. Growth is good. Tolerance and mutual respect is good. The war forced everyone into their ridiculously stupid talking points, which included the whole Lightning Messiah situation that has been a setback ever since. We've been trapped in this world, this silly world, and we can't a world where people can't even say true things that they believe. So good luck making that a success. It's the biggest recipe for failure there is. And a world where people are afraid of being like cast out and sort of humiliated. So they can't even say, if someone invents something interesting, whatever, like Canzero wanted to do like web cache or something. He like waited for months and months and months. He was worried that people would like have a negative reaction to it. Jeremy Rubin, someone who wants to, the whole idea that like people would leave is a mistake. That we would kick people out is a mistake. We should be growing the tent until we're at least 50% of the wealth of the planet. It should be just big tent because we have to win. It's a network effect game. A lot of people, it's much more popular to just say those people come crawling back. Bitcoin's success is inevitable. Descriptor wallets are great. Let's have 40 new address
Yes, but I think
formats.
they're the
Batch
personally, I think
32M, Batch 32N, Batch 32, Batch 35, Batch 307, dash II,
they
dash Omega,
I think
final
they're
underscore
so
final 2.
they're to some sense I think they're both right in the sense that there is this abstract, so you have this notion of Bitcoin as this abstract force of game theory and incentives, and then like magically developing its way to be like the be all end all, and the other perspective is like, no, it's actual people, right, and doing things, and I think they're both true, and I'm not, so in that sense I'm not really that uh, I'm not that upset by a Jeremy Rubin leaving, right? Even though I'm very much aware of the specific individuals actually writing the code, right, and knowing like, okay, it's not that many people, and it's like you can't have you can have one Jeremy Rubin doing this, but you know, if you get five, then it's oh, that's rough, right? That's five is a lot, and then hopefully not more than five, because if it starts to get to 10 significant people, yeah, okay, then things can die. I'm not
And
arguing this.
significant
It's
people
just that,
leaving. I mean, well, what about what about the fact that darknet markets are now, many of them are Monero only? I mean, that to me, that counts as more than 10 right off the bat. Because that was the beginning of Bitcoin. There was no, before the darknet markets, there was no Bitcoin. It was just a piece of software that did nothing. But then it became real.
yes, but
Really became money. It was like you go to a laundromat and it only takes quarters. You go to this darknet market, it only takes Bitcoin, and you're like, wow, I need to get some Bitcoin now.
Yes, but it also gives me a that was one of my topics, actually. My only topic. It does give me a VPN for an hour, right?
VPN is
I
good.
pay a
That's
few
also good. I like that.
I pay a few
think that's
satoshis,
great.
and I get a VPN.
I like that.
So I'm not really too concerned with particular industries.
Well, what if we lost the VPN
uh,
industry? So you're hinging the argument. You're saying the argument is independent on losing people. I mean, you're saying maybe if we lose 5, but I'm saying that's one. This is the canary in the coal mine, basically. The fact that we would lose people, even like Vitalik in a way, but you know, someone like Roger Ver, the fact that you'd lose someone like that doesn't really make any sense. The fact that you'd have these people, even people like Brian Armstrong, you know, he is, I think, just terrible, like ability
but
to
Paul,
pick what good idea.
there's also part of the reason why. Okay, part of the reason why people leave Bitcoin is also because they bump their head into Bitcoin, precisely because Bitcoin is not is not built to solve a particular problem. Bitcoin is just a thing.
Yes, it's a
And
social thing where it's a group
we're
thing.
figuring out what the thing is and where it fits, right?
Well,
That's
it's
what
a
we're
thing
doing.
for a group. It's like a language. So it's something shared by a group of people. And if you think, okay, the group wants this, you can't just unilaterally assert that that's the truth. So I agree with you about that.
No, but there's also like
But there's also the problem of the
technically there are some technical inherent aspects to the thing that also makes it very hard for if it the Bitcoin Roger Ver promoted was not real, right? It wasn't real. Bitcoin wasn't instant.
It didn't exist yet.
Technically, Bitcoin isn't instant. The transactions that you're doing are not instant.
Well, I mean,
you have to wait for a confirmation, and then technically you have to wait for a couple of confirmations.
What you say is,
I don't think
it's the
that's
same
actually
that
really
people
that. I
do.
mean, if you
Some people say like, "Oh, the market will decide." You don't have to say anything.
I don't like that.
You don't have to do anything. You just wait for the market to decide. Like that's what
and
you're
that's
saying.
people say, like, they say, well, we'll do whatever the laws of physics say that we'll do, and it's like, well, we're doing that no matter what. Like, that's already happening. So like, it's like a non-answer. But I mean, the thing about finality is that actually Bitcoin, the zero conf is more final than like a credit card transaction, right? Because it's reverse 30 days.
Yeah, and my answer is there is no finality in Bitcoin, and that's the point.
Well, there's no finality in there.
Because there is no
in the real
finality.
world of any kind. There's no certainty of any kind in the real world. There's no
Right.
permanent certainty. You could always
Right.
you could always be like
Right.
you could always wake up tomorrow and you could be like, wow, that was a dream. I dreamed that I was a human on Earth.
Okay, so that's that. I'm not going that far. I would say that in the
But you see, this is an attempt by you
administrative in every
to evade
there
the
is no
principle of the question, which is how confident is the merchant that they have money, which is in the credit card
yes
case
the point
actually
of
less
that's yes that's the point of the system. The point of the
in
system,
zero
point of
conf
Bitcoin
is
is
superior
to
to credit card in that dimension. So in that sense, they were instant.
in depending on the context. I mean,
Yes,
if
it always depends, but everything always depends on the context.
yes, so but it doesn't. So if you are the only dude doing the zero conf, and then yes, but then if it only hinges on Peter Todd putting in a button or not, right? Then to do a rebroadcast
Is that
of
the
a
only
different
thing it
transaction.
hinges on? I don't think so, because then Peter Todd
No,
has to
but
give the software out there, and people have to decide ethically to use it. You know, people have to decide, like in certain
yeah,
cases.
but that's what happened.
In certain cases, like if you're buying something on Amazon and you use zero conf, they'll just take it as you canceling the order. So there's no problem there. And if you buy something in a store where your face is on their camera or your license plate is, you know, they have security camera footage of you buying coffee and then zero conf finny attacking the transaction out. That used to be what it was called back in the day. And then they know who you are. You can be arrested for shoplifting or whatever. Or they just decide they don't care. Since they're the merchant, they're the ones who should care. You know, like I'm sure Target, Walmart, etc. They have certain numbers that they consider reasonable for like
Okay,
breakage.
Paul.
Is this
Paul,
really like
okay.
some weird kind of thing? Like this is are these
No,
unreasonable?
we're getting baited into bullshit because when Roger Ver was doing this, was he saying Bitcoin is free, Bitcoin is instant? Well, okay, was he saying Bitcoin is instant, or was he saying, well, there's this risk spectrum that you can be on, and you can figure out yourself in this new nuanced spectrum of whether or not people will zero or replace by fee or zero comp transactions or not? No, that's not what he said.
Let me give you an answer to that question. It may take a couple sentences, but whenever anyone says anything, they have to keep in mind, you know, like you remember Lord of the Rings, we're going from Warcraft 3 to Lord of the, remember the Ents, it took them all day to say their name or whatever, and it took them like all like 3 days to say hello.
Yeah, hello. Yeah.
So you can always be more
Good morning,
clear.
I think even.
You could always be more and more clear. You could say, I'm going to give you a whole PhD dissertation. Whenever you tell anyone anything, and always, whenever, no matter what you do, no matter, you could be the greatest communicator in the world, and you could have the best audience in the world, you could have the best luck in the world. Everything we say is a mere approximation of the truth, because the truth is that we live in this giant reality multiverse that is billions of light years across. That was the only part that we can see, which is an utterly minuscule percentage of the entire thing. Not to mention all the multiverses that are parallel, and including all the stuff that we haven't discovered yet. So the real truth is like always some unutterable thing. And no matter whatever you say, you're always just doing an approximation of it. So from a certain perspective, Roger Ver may be comparing like wire transfers, credit cards that can be reversed 30 or even 90 days later, money order, Western Union, whatever was big at the time. I don't even really remember. But that stuff was not instant. And if you send a Bitcoin transaction, the zero conf part, it really did show up instantly. And it did have more finality than most of like.
Yes, in that.
So he's just saying, I have to fit
aside
this
from
into
your
one
starting
sentence.
platitude, aside from your
He's
starting
saying,
platitude,
I'm going to give it one. I'm going to give it one sentence, and I only have a couple words to hit the big differences between this and a wire
Yes, and the
transfer.
sentence is a lie. But the sentence is
But every
actually a
sentence
lie
is
the moment people start to use
no,
it.
it's not though, because every sentence is a lie. And if you're going to say that, then there's no point in saying there's no difference between someone saying, "I didn't
But the
kill,
fact that
I never
the fact
killed
that
that
the
lady that I actually did kill," and versus something where they just say,
Paul,
"You
the
look
fact
great
that
in that dress." To you, there's no
Paul, the
difference between
fact
those two.
the fact that blocks would eventually fill, and that it's not a matter of 10 minutes, it's a matter of,
But
well, whatever
Roger
you
may have been
pay.
describing it. As far as I know, I mean, I think he was saying those such things in like 2012, 2013 or whatever. So that was,
Yeah,
and that
but
was
he could have
before,
reasoned about it.
that was before but I think again, like if you're just trying to give people, everyone knows that something could get worse later. But he's saying today this is free. So he wants people to get involved, today. He's saying this is
Yeah,
today. And yeah, of course,
for
this
whatever motivation,
is
and
not.
it
I don't
fucked
think
up
this is
the
no. I don't
expectations.
think that this is an accurate telling of what actually happened, because in the world of business, like Roger Ver is an entrepreneur. You know that anything could always change the next day. You could have great success with radio advertising, and then Facebook could be invented, or whatever, television could be invented. Anything could always happen next year. So there is no one is planning more than 18 months out in the world of business. But he's saying this is free right now. It might be great. No one plans to really run their business forever. There's only a few cases, whatever, Walmart, General Electric or something, where they actually plan to run the business forever. So this is not the idea that you're obligated to
But
pitch
that's not
someone
so.
this social contract with them that is going to last for the next 2,000 years. Is not
Yes,
true.
but that is actually what Bitcoin is,
But
if you ask me.
but that's what I'm telling you. That's only the case if Bitcoin, if it's because the network effects make that quite fraught. Because you see that if something else is better, and people go to that, then Bitcoin will go to zero, and then it will not have finality because it'll have no proof of work, because it'll have no block
Okay,
reward.
let me
Purchasing
let,
power
let
of the
me ask
block
you this.
reward will fall to zero, and it will
Let
then
me ask you
not
this
have
question.
this property of being of any of the properties that you say it has today.
Yes, if Bitcoin's dead, then it's
Right.
dead. Okay, so was it worth
Can
the
you
effort if
guarantee?
Bitcoin dies?
Can you guarantee that it won't
Was
die
it
for
worth?
2,000 years?
I'm not going to. No,
Right, of
that's not
course
the
not.
point.
Right, but that's what you just said Roger
Um,
Ver had to do in a way.
no, it's like you have to.
So that's his version of.
There's a difference between starting building a cathedral or setting up a tent.
I agree with
Right,
it.
that's
From
my
an
point.
engineering point of view, you are obligated in some sense to do all these back of the envelope calculations and decide, is this a reasonable course
Yeah.
of action? But that, again, well, he really just believed that it would work fine because.
Oh, I agree. I think I like I already said, I don't think there was any. He wasn't disingenuous or anything.
But you said he
But
lied.
let me ask you this question. If Bitcoin dies in, let's say, 20 years, was it worth it?
Well, that depends on exactly what happened. Like, did we hard fork the UTXO set into the thing that won? If so, then it was clearly worth it. If no, then I would say
Okay.
probably not.
No. Everything. So all the
The
distribution,
whole thing is
everything
gone.
the
All the
UTXO said,
owners are dead.
everything gone. Yes.
Did we must have learned something along the way that was like useful. Like, we must have learned why I died.
You'd
I would
hope.
still say yes.
You'd hope, but so you'd hope, and it would hinge on that, right?
Right. Yeah.
But okay, but that would be my point, right? If it all hinges on, well, maybe there is some derivative lesson to be learned here from the
Did we learn that it was
from the
all
concrete
because Constant didn't endorse BIP 300 1 month earlier? That was the moment.
Well, there's probably some great Terminator movie being made on
Go back in time and make a Twitter account to help push BIP 300 over the line.
Fia Jeffer is still alive?
I was in the bathroom, but I just came back.
Thank you. Do you have more details?
I think we should stop this.
What's up?
Did you pee in the shower?
No, I didn't take a shower.
Okay, great.
No, I had one thing.
We must do another show in which you don't talk about these very boring topics. And
I agree. They are very boring. They're rehashes of rehashes of rehashes of stuff that has been discussed over and over again. Why are we doing this, Paul?
Warcraft 3 campaign only.
Also, I have to turn this thing off. I was considering just leaving and muting myself and letting you discuss about Roger Veer and whatever forever. But
No, and I still have a
no,
question.
no, I think I have
8
to
cents
go. I have to go.
Dragons.
Okay, so I will leave and mute myself.
Okay.
no, Fia Jeff, just wait 5 seconds. Is 8 cents for a ChatGPT prompt too much, or what? That's
Are they
phrase it
are they
differently.
going to pay you to read what the bot says?
Do you think paying 8 cents for a ChatGPT prompt is a good price?
I do, yeah, personally, yes. I would pay 8 cents.
Depends on the prompt. I'm forced to read stuff on Nostr because on Nostr there are some people that run these bots that respond to everything that I say with ChatGPT, and it's the most annoying thing in the world. Like I have like some school teacher telling me things every day for everything that I say. They came and explain the terms that I use to me. It's the most annoying thing. I wouldn't pay for these. I wish
I
they
hear
paid
that.
me.
I mean, obviously, the cheaper it is, the more you would use. The thing is a basic supply and demand situation. So, like, what the price is sort of what the price is.
Yeah, I think 8 cents is a bit too much because you want to be able to play around with the
You definitely want to be able
with
to
your prompts.
cross-examine it like a couple times and be like, "That isn't right."
Yeah.
And you do it again.
Why are you asking that?
Yeah. So if you're fucking around with the thing, right, then you want to have some leeway. You don't want it to be like $5
I mean,
for
but
the
8
thing that you
cents. I
did.
mean,
So
to get $8, you get like 100 of those. So
yep.
it's like
Why are you
one
asking
gear
that?
equals 100 ChatGPT. That seems okay to me.
Okay. Well, you can do it right now. There is somebody made it. Plap chat, something like that. You can.
Pleb.
It's basically a front. It's a front surface for they
Yeah.
pay
You
they
said
pay
you
for the
didn't care about the
subscription and you can
plebs.
just. Well, I don't, but the plebs seem to care a lot about themselves.
Yes.
So
That's a very
Yeah.
big price. I wouldn't pay that.
Vanity pleb. That's my new wallet generator service.
I had a bunch of questions about prediction markets.
Oh, come on. Can we get to them? Come on, ask them.
No, I won't ask them. I really have to. But
oh, you need
yeah.
to go.
All
Oh,
right.
that's great. Well, I
got all the
held
prediction
up my
market
end of the bargain. We had Paul Sztorc on the show, so we never have to discuss drive chains anymore. On
The
the show
idea was
ever
that we
again.
wouldn't discuss drive chains, but you wanted so much. You couldn't stop yourself. You should talk about drive chain all the time. You wanted that. So you were not being you're lying when you said you didn't want to talk about drive chains.
You could have been more Brazilian and
I
interrupted
tried,
me.
but you talk too much. You want to get your points across. So if I interrupt, you just start over, and
Paul,
mostly
I
you.
think Jeff and I need relation therapy. Do you want to be our therapist?
Sure. I use the ChatGPT to help me. My fee is 9 cents per.
Well, I found a Telegram bot that does ChatGPT stuff for me for free.
There we go.
I don't know if it's I don't know if it's the real ChatGPT or what. I know that the answers are always wrong, so it must be ChatGPT.
But is it 3.5 or 4.0?
I have no
Let me
idea.
ask you this. I think this is an important question. Isn't it getting much easier for you to tell that the thing is written by Chat? Like before, I was like, when they were like, this write a poem. Someone like when Mike in Space was like, write a sea shanty about drivechain. I was like, this is amazing. But now I really feel like I can tell that something is by ChatGPT because it's just too generic.
Sure, but that's because you as a human are very good at pattern recognition, and
Right.
what you're interfacing with is a statistical pattern machine, right?
So that's
so you're able to deduce the underlying pattern or like the weights of the
it's like a human being that only says
School
like
teacher
the
lines.
most generic thing. Yeah, like the most sanitized
Holdor.
thing. But I don't know, but I think that's fascinating, of course.
What about?
But Fia Jeff has to go.
All right, Fia Jav, have fun doing whatever it is you're doing that's not getting your prediction market questions answered.
Just ask your
No,
questions.
they're
What's your
too
number
long.
one? What's the number one question?
No, they're too long.
How to predict. Asking for a friend.
I'm no. How do
How
we
does
end?
Hive Mind learn what actually happened? I get that question all the time. I'm like, it's kind of like
I feel so bad
it
right.
take a
I
little
feel so
while to
bad right now.
explain. People are like, "Can you just tell me
'Cause-
how it works?" I'm like, I mean, I can try. It's like it take like 5 or
It's
6 minutes every time someone asks me that question.
Fiat Jeff was really excited getting you on the show, and I feel like I robbed his
Oh, just
his
come on! I'll come on
opportunity
again,
to
guys. This is
interact
fun.
with you.
Have me on some other time.
You know,
I'm
Constant
sorry,
Constant
Fiat
will
Jeff.
say the same things.
I didn't mean it this
Constant
way.
says the same things in every show. Like when he's
That's
talking
true.
to me or whatever the other guest is, he always says the same thing.
That's true.
He's like a chat GPT.
I only have like one talking point, and that's fuck the plebs, and then fuck the plebs and global state. That's the only two things I say.
Have you heard that blockchains don't scale?
Okay,
They say
how
blockchains don't
do we end this? Do I have to click something or what?
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah. Play a Warcraft 3.
You just have to say some kind of definitive word, and then I'll cut
The end.